The 69 Mobil won 12 hours of Sebring lived up to the hype once again. This 12-hour endurance race, crown jewel event, had literally everything, had a little bit of everything. Intense action from green flag to checker flag, RG Bargy, as Calvin Fish likes to say, drama, a few scary incidents, and we have a lot to discuss. At the start, pole sitter Pippo Durrani held on to the lead in his number 31 Action Express race in Wheeling Engineering sponsored Cadillac DPI, but soon faced a challenge from Ringer Van de Zand in the number 001 Chip Ganassi racing Cadillac. Pippo and Ringer got side by side while trying to overtake a GTD car. Ringer changed his line to avoid hitting the GTD car, coming down on Pippo and forcing the 31 to hit a wall. This basically ended the Wheeling Engineering prototype's chances of winning as they had to play catch up for the rest of the race after running into more problems later on. The other Action Express car had a tough start to the race too. After crashing on the final lap of qualifying on Friday, seven-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson started the race in the number 48 Allied Cadillac. Jimmy had a good start during the opening minutes of the race, keeping up with the DPI field and ahead of the number 5 Mustang sampling Cadillac. Then he got into GTD traffic, tried to pass one of the slower cars, went for a spin, and got hit by Lloyd Duvall in the number 5 Cadillac. Both DPIs went to the pits for repairs, and it was definitely a lucky escape from Jimmy. They changed the nose, sent him back out, and he was fortunate enough to stay on the lead lap. But Mustang sampling fell 2 laps down and definitely had an uphill climb. After the incident, Jimmy didn't put a wheel wrong for the rest of the day. His lap times got better and better, started to navigate traffic more efficiently, and overall just looked more comfortable driving a high downforce prototype like he's been doing it for a decade or so. Definitely a good recovery from Friday, although he didn't necessarily get the finish he'd like. His teammate Kamui Kobayashi came across the line in third, but the team was demoted to last place in the class because Simon Pagenaud exceeded his drive time by a mere 50 seconds. So definitely unfortunate miscalculation by Action Express in this, partnership with Hendrick Motorsports. Chad Ganassi was on the box as well. Despite a disappointing ending to the weekend and several mistakes along the way, how much has Jimmy Johnson improved in the Cadillac DPI since the Daytona qualifying race?
I think he's improved quite a bit, but I still think he has a long way to go, and I think that should be expected. I think I forget who on the NBC broadcast said it, but I remember somebody was mentioning when you look at Scott Dixon, who's a multi-time IndyCar champion, Jimmy Johnson, obviously a NASCAR champion, you kind of expect them to just hop in a race car and pick up right where they left off from their series and perform well right out of the gate. And what they were saying to counter that is that it doesn't really matter who you are. If you get in a new car, it's going to take some time to find your footing and get on the same level as your teammates who have been doing it for much longer than you have, no matter who you are. So in Jimmy Johnson's case, has he improved from a couple of months ago in Daytona? Absolutely. But he still has a long way to go to match. I don't know, maybe Kobayashi's not fair because Kobayashi is just so incredible. But, to be on the same level where we expect him to be able to jump in, the very beginning of the race weekend and put down competitive lap times, I still think he has a little bit of ways to go, but that's to be expected.
Yeah, definitely. It's to be expected that Jimmy's not going to be in the same level as the other DPI competitors, as fast as ones in class. Like you mentioned, Kamui's one of the top of the Ringer. Van de Zande was setting some fast time. Scott Dixon, Kevin Magnussen, they were extremely fast. The Mazda guys were very quick as well. Yeah, so you can't really expect Jimmy to be matching the same lap times as those regulars in DPI. And as we saw in the Rolex 24, Chase Elliott, the defending NASCAR champion, Chase Elliott struggled really badly in the Cadillac DPI, and it would be interesting to see how Chase could do if he was able to get more seat time in that car. And as we've seen with Jimmy since the Daytona qualifying race, it looked like he was very conservative. Yeah, he drove very conservative in the qualifying race. Rolex 24, he didn't necessarily have the pace of his teammates, but Jimmy's continued to get better and better. And I noticed towards the end of his final stint in the Rolex 24, Jimmy was able to get a lot closer. And in qualifying before he crashed out there, he was getting much closer to the other DPI competitors as well, and saw the same thing during the race. So I definitely think Jimmy deserves a lot of credit for all the hard work that he's doing in order to be successful in endurance racing, and also using this high downforce car to prepare for IndyCar racing that he's going to do in just a month's time. And as I said a little while ago, the race had several scary incidents. The first was the number 19 GRT Grasser Lamborghini of Frank Pereira. Something went wrong mechanically with the Lambo and crashed hard into the number 28 Allegro Motorsports Mercedes, driven by Billy Johnson. Both drivers went off at a high rate of speed and crashed very hard into the tire barriers. The hit was hard enough where it moved the wall back, and we had to stop the action for a little while for repairs. Luckily, Pereira and Johnson got out of the car under their own power and did a TV interview after that. The number 22 United Autosports LMP2 went for a spin with Jim McGuire behind the wheel. He re-entered the track right in front of the number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac, and lucky enough, the driver who was behind the wheel of that DPI at the time was paying attention, and he swerved to avoid McGuire, and that really could have been such an ugly shunt. And IMSA ended up penalizing McGuire with a drive-through penalty for an unsafe re-entry to the track. And speaking of ugly shunts, the number 8 Tower Motorsport LMP2 could not avoid it. Tim Bourret lost control of that LMP2 car, spun off course, smashed into some tire barriers, destroying the car as it flipped over and landed on all fours. Bure was able to get out of the car unharmed, but it definitely looks like a lost chassis for Tower, and really unfortunate there. Also, there was a big fire in the BMW Team RLL pits, the number 24 GTLM car. They put out the fire, and once again, we got extremely lucky that nobody was seriously injured. Is it just me, or did Sebring seem a little bit more chaotic than usual?
This year's Sebring race did seem a lot more chaotic than usual. I don't think it was anything like out of the ordinary. It wasn't like, drivers were going extra hard or the track condition was even extra bumpy. I just feel like it's just one of those deals where every few years we have a more chaotic event, and this year just felt like it was a lot more chaotic.
Yeah, I must confess, I'm still a little bit newer to IMSA than other forms of racing, but it does seem like, I'm thinking back to Daytona in particular in the season finale in 2020. Sports car fans have definitely been treated to some really good action, some really good racing the last few IMSA races. So we'll see if that continues on. But it definitely seemed like Sebring there were a lot of layers to a race this year, and it seemed like there was a lot going on.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot going on. And looking at the rest of the DPI field, after the number 31 Cadillac went out of contention, it seemed like the two cars who fought for the win in the closing minutes of the Rolex 24 would be the ones to beat. The number 10 Konica Minolta Acura DPI from Wayne Taylor Racing and number 01 Cadillac DPI from Chip Ganassi Racing. Unfortunately, Felipe Albuquerque made contact with Jack Hawksworth's GTD Lexus, causing damage to the prototype. This pushed Wayne Taylor Racing back a few positions, and they were able to get the damage repaired. It was still competitive, but they were not a serious threat for the win anymore, although Alexander Rossi was able to get the car back into contention. Late in the race, Scott Dixon was pulling far ahead of the DPI competition and was getting ready to pit, handing the car over to Ringer Van de Zande for the final stint. It seemed like Dixon got a late call to bring the car down pit road for the final time. Then he cut down from pit road from the high lane, exiting turn 17 onto the front stretch, and ended up hitting one of the BMW GTLM cars, and the car suffered damage and put Ganassi out of contention. How tough is it for Chip Ganassi Racing to suffer two heartbreaking defeats to start off the season, especially after showing race winning pace at Daytona and Sebring?
Yeah, it's got to be very tough. I'd love Wayne Taylor Racing. I love Alexander Rossi, but I would have loved to see the battle at Daytona be able to play out naturally, because it really looked like that 01 car had a head of steam at Daytona. It was shaping up to be a really good finish before they cut the tire. And yesterday at Sebring, the same thing. The 01 looked like it had the pace to win, and just unfortunate circumstances taking them out of the race. It's got to be very tough, and certainly hope that they can rebound throughout the rest of the season.
Very tough break. So close twice. Showing again pace. It's just one of those deals as racing. Sometimes you just have to keep trying, and then eventually that win's going to come. Especially considering they're coming back in this class, I think they have to at least look at the positives. We have fast cars. We are contending for wins here and there. It's just a matter of when they'll get that win.
Yeah, and I'm sure Ganassi will be able to put those two heartbreaks behind him and find victory lane at some point later this season in IMSA. And it's really crazy because they got the Cadillac DPI very late in the year. This program come online, just like I wouldn't say at the very last minute, but very close to being considered last minute, and to be able to fire off the truck with the amount of speed they showed at Daytona, and also pull away at the end at Sebring. It shows that once they put all this bad luck behind them, Chip Ganassi Racing is going to be a threat to win these DPI races. And Mazda Motorsports led at points in the race. The Ally Cadillac led some when they got off sequence. Simon Pagenaud helped the team catch up after Jimmy's mistake, and Jimmy was solid, as I said, after his hiccup. And Kamui Kobayashi just did Kamui Kobayashi things. He's so freaking fast. And Meyer Shank Racing, they were competitive, but they just didn't have the speed to win. However, the winning team caught everybody by surprise, and nobody really expected them to be a factor, especially after they battled adversity throughout the race. The number 5 Mustang Sample and Cadillac DPI played catch up all day, starting with the damage from hitting a spinning Jimmy Johnson and falling 2 laps behind. It was uncertain if they'd be able to catch the full course caution at the right time to receive the wave box to get their laps back. Then Felipe Nasr in the number 31 Cadillac got really loose, entered in turn 1, went wide into Tristan Vautier, who was exiting the pits at the time, right in the path of Nasr as both Cadillacs went spinning, and Vautier was just an innocent bystander, had nowhere to go. Another setback for the Mustang sampling car. Miraculously, the number 5 earned both laps back and took the lead later in the race with Sebastian Bourdais behind the wheel, holding off Harry Chinknell, Kamui Kobayashi, and Dan Cameron. And I was just wondering, where in the heck did they come from? Because last time I looked, they were 2 laps down. Then I blinked, and they're up front, leading the race. So definitely JDC Miller Motorsports Mustang sampling overcame a lot of obstacles to win the 69th running of the Mobil 1, 12 Hours of Sebring, with drivers Sebastian Bourdais, Lloyd Duval, Tristan Vautier, and Sebastian Bourdais last won Sebring in 2015 with Action Express Racing with teammates Christian Fittipaldi, Sebastian Bourdais, Lloyd Duval won Sebring an entire decade ago in 2011 with the Peugeot team with teammates Olivier Panis and Nicolas Lapierre. And Tristan Vautier wins Sebring overall for the very first time. And here's my question for you guys. Is this the perfect example of perseverance in endurance racing?
I think so. I think when it comes to these, particularly Sebring, Daytona, Le Mans, 12-hour races, 24-hour races, because of how long the race is, you can never give up. You can never let yourself fall out of it. And I think the first 24 hours of Le Mans that I can remember actively watching was 2017, and I remember getting into the closing hours. An LMP2 car was leading outright because all the LMP1 cars had trouble at some point in the race, and eventually the Porsche did end up reclaiming the overall lead and taking both the class and the overall victory. But you just never know what's going to happen in these races. There's so much time for something to go wrong or something to change. And so even if you're a couple of laps down, you have to keep fighting as if you're on the lead lap because you never know what's going to happen.
100% agree. The length of these races, the long time that is involved. And of course, when it comes to the pit stops as well, we know the pit stops, they're not exactly the fastest pit stops because of the rules that IMSA has in place. So there's always got to be the mentality going out there, racing for the win, even when you're a couple laps down, having a rough race. Because if the leaders have bad luck, you could capitalize, gain positions, and a surprise win, and it still always usually comes down to the last lap. So it's never over till it's over.
Yeah, it's never over till it's over, and you have to give JDC Miller Motorsports Mustang Sample a lot of credit for hanging in there, because I know you go 2 laps down during the race and you're thinking our chances of winning are over, and you get dejected, but they kept digging, kept fighting, and kept believing. Those full course cautions come out at the right time, got back on the lead lap, and they went out there and shocked everyone to win the race, because this is one of the smaller operations in DPI, and they were able to take down a lot of the bigger teams in DPI who have that factory funding. So definitely this was like an underdog victory for such an improving DPI team. Looking at the other class winners in LMP2, that went to the number 52 PR1 Matheson Motorsports, Orica, Mikkel Jensen, Scott Huffaker, and Ben Keaton. And with Mikkel Jensen behind the wheel, he held off a fierce charge from Ryan Dial's number 18, Air Motorsport Orica late LMP3 class winners, number 54, Core Autosport, with Colin Brown, John Bennett, and George Kurtz. 47 Motorsports and Riley Motorsports swapped the lead all race long. Every time I looked at the top of the hour for the update, it was either 47 Motorsports or Riley Motorsports in the lead. But all of a sudden, Core Autosport emerged late and stole the show from those 2 teams who dominated the day. And in GTLM, it was the number 79 Proton Competition WeatherTech Racing Porsche 911 RSR. It was a Pro-Am lineup of with 2 Porsche factory drivers, Matthew Jomine, Matt Campbell, and then the AM driver, Cooper McNeil. So, and this was a big deal because this is a privateer entry taking down BMW and the Corvette factory cars, and contact late between the BMW, Connor DeFilippi, and Antonio Garcia really put them in the position for this to happen, because DeFilippi and the BMW got a penalty for hitting Garcia, and Garcia's car was wounded, and this opened the door for the Proton WeatherTech Porsche to win GTLM. And in GTD, that went to number 9 Pfaff Motorsports Porsche with Lawrence Van Thor, Zachary Robichon, and Lars Kern. And it was really a battle between Pfaff and Wright Porsches all race long. and Faf was the one who ended up on top.